Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the FinServe podcast. I'm going to be your host today, Jamie Hopkins, and it's going to be a fun episode. We've actually been meaning to do this episode for a couple of months now, but we finally got around to it. Victoria O'Toole is our guest on the show, and a lot of you that are listening to this are already going to know Victoria because she stepped in as the executive director here at FinServe Foundation earlier this year, really back in June, but had already been part of the organization. We were just talking about this before we came on for about a year now, and super excited to have you on the show. I think we're also going to dive into our topic for today after we talk a little bit more about you, Victoria, into standing out in a job search and a little bit of your story around there and some best practices that I've seen too. But super excited to have you on the show today.
Yes, I'm super excited to be here, Jamie. Thank you so much for the invite, and really excited to share more about what we do at the FinServe Foundation, some of the work that I've been doing, and then a little bit of my story, and provide the students or the fellows or some other people who may be listening with some tips for the job search.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on the show. It's a little bit different than how we normally interact. We message back and forth, text, email, about 19 different ways to interact all the time. But I don't really get to interview you a lot. So this is going to be fun for me too. So I'm excited to hop on here. But I think to start, let's set up that a little bit of that framework and history of you. So if you don't mind, let's take 3 or 4 minutes and talk through your story. I mean, really how you ended up here in FinServe and at the executive director role. Because I mean, this is a big deal, and we're super excited to have you on board. I know Bonnie and I are just couldn't be happier with all the work you've been doing there about this profession and all the time you give back to FinServe.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, just to give a little bit of background on me, I am a military kid at heart, which meant I moved around the US a lot in my childhood. And I started high school in the same high school that our director of mentorship graduated in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. So my roots are in Nebraska. I ended up graduating in Virginia, and my parents really emphasized a lot when I was growing up. One of the two things that my parents really strongly emphasized was giving back to your community and also financial literacy. So while I was talking about the markets and family finances with my father, my mother was taking me out into the community and showing me how to serve and give back. So I really had a passion for the both of those. And I knew that when I was really starting to look at college and what I wanted to do in my career, financial planning was kind of the perfect blend of the two of those things that I was really passionate about. So I had a goal when I was in middle school to put myself through college financially independent of my parents. I got a full ride scholarship to the University of Alabama, ended up on a CFP track there, which is the finance major and a minor in personal wealth management. Got introduced to the financial planning club there, got introduced to the FinServe Foundation, applied for that, and then that's history.
Yeah. Well, I love that. You mentioned Samantha Allen and the high school. I think you or her told me also, weren't you part of a club that she started or something there at the high school too? Was it debate or what was it that she started?
It was the public speaking club, and joining that organization was so pivotal to my career. When I think back on the few things that really started me off on the path of who I am now as an individual, it was my confidence that I gained through pushing myself and challenging myself through my mother encouraging me to push myself out of my comfort zone and do something that terrified me, which was public speaking. So Samantha actually started that, which I found out about a few months ago. And I just thought it was so cool that we came from this tiny little town in Nebraska. She started this public speaking club that was so pivotal to my entire childhood. And it's just cool how the world works that way.
It really is pretty cool. I thought that, it's the world is very
So
small
crazy.
all of a sudden. And I love that story. So I think another question that I'm going to ask for you, and then we'll hop into some other topics, was you did mention like you got introduced to FinServ. We have a lot of fellows that listen to this. What actually was it when you heard about FinServ that said, I want to reach out and be part of this too? I think it's always I don't know that I've ever asked you that, but yeah, it's always good to hear that.
Yeah, for me, I realized that my university unfortunately didn't have a ton of resources and prep to
Mhm.
really help skyrocket your career in financial planning. So when a department chair of consumer sciences sent me an email, which is another CFP program that we have at the University of Alabama, said, "Hey, there's this program you might think about applying." And I was like, great. Oh my gosh, I can get some coaching on hard and soft skill development, some industry knowledge. Not getting a ton of this in my classes, but I really think I need it. And then I can get access to an industry conference. Like, great. I am a broke college student. I'm putting myself through college. My university doesn't offer any scholarships to attend these industry conferences. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. And then I get a mentor, like, and it's all free for me. This is incredible. I just didn't have those resources at my university, unfortunately. And there's a ton that my university is doing really,
Man,
really well. But I felt like those core pillars weren't being addressed and I felt like I needed them. So I applied and it was just all about Finster Foundation that I thought I needed. And through going through the program, I realized this is something that I love helping people achieve as well. So it was an incredible program and everything about it led me to apply.
well, I'm glad you found your way here, and yeah, it's always good to hear like what brought people to something. It's I know what you've done since you've been here, but like how did you get here is always a great part of the story too. And we want to go into now and kind of shift gears a little bit. So super excited to have you here and part of FinServe. And as I said, a lot of our listeners will have gotten many emails from you, but. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today when we thought about topics was really this job search.
Mhm.
So I'll give a couple kudos to some other people out there, right? Denise Sprung, I mean, she was an executive recruiter for a long time. She's part of our advisory board and helps out with a lot of our marketing materials and a lot of our feedback. And she's wonderful. I hire, just a lot of people in general. It's been part of my job for the past really 7 years. And but then you've really gone through kind of the job search experience more
Yeah.
recently. And you also talk to a lot of FinServe fellows about what
Mhm.
they're doing and kind of just the interactions of how they're feeling and what's going
Mhm.
on. So I thought that would be a great topic today. So let's start a little bit about, right, what you've seen work for yourself, how you've gone
Uh-huh.
through this process. And I know you landed a great opportunity. Maybe tell us a little bit about that
Yeah.
process and experience so far.
Yeah, sure. I will say getting an internship, especially a junior year internship for most students, is the pivotal moment of their undergrad career. It is the thing that you have to do is get that internship because if you get that internship and they have opportunities to hire on full time, then that's the easiest way to do it. You get that junior year internship, you do well in it, and then you're set your senior year. You don't have to worry about searching for the job. So overall, that's what everyone is focused on is that internship. So getting one is super important. Now, when you think about the right and the wrongs and the things that I see and the things that I did to have 3 internships in my undergrad career, it's not mass applying to jobs. I see so many students, I see it online too. They're like, I applied to 500 internships and I got 3 interviews. And unfortunately, that's really not the way that you're going to be able to land an internship. So I know you probably have a lot of advice on this as well, Jamie, but being specific about the jobs that you apply for and having coffee chats with people after you've applied and going into career fairs. I know I always went in, I researched all the companies I was going to talk to. I came with my resume in hand. I talked to the recruiter. I said, I've already applied for your job. And I just want to learn a little bit more about the culture. So I'd love for you to tell me your story, why you stayed, share, like probe them about their personal experience. Because a lot of the questions that I find students ask are Googleable and they don't really come prepared into a lot of these conversations.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. The not showing up prepared is probably one of the worst faux pas you can do when interviewing for anything. If you walk in, you really don't know the company, you don't know what they do, you don't look up the people you're interviewing with beforehand, too.
Yeah,
Now, there are times where companies just say you're coming in for an interview and they don't tell you the people. It does happen. You can ask.
you
Sometimes they
can
don't
ask.
know. Right. Because I have seen places they say, oh, well, we use a rotating group of people for the first interview, and it'll be one of these three, and they might not really tell you. But most of the time, you do know who you're interviewing with ahead of time. And so to that point, like look them up and get ready for questions about them. So you can
Hmm.
go, for me, what I always leaned on, and this is not the strategy for everybody, but I would try to figure out like what school they went to and see, did they play sports? Can I find that somewhere out there in some bio it says that they're a huge Penn State football fan? And then it's like, okay, I know that the Penn State football coach was just fired, and I'm going to talk to him about Franklin. And if we can spend most of our time just talking about Franklin, like this will be a great interview because they people want to know about you and that you spend time thinking about them. You show up articulate and prepared, especially for internships. That's mostly what people are looking for, in my opinion. But you show up and you don't know what the job is, you don't know what the firm is, right? Stuff that was easily, Googleable, or right, you can ask AI today, tell me about the firm. And
Uh-huh.
like, what's their strategy? What are their core values? Give me an interview prep sheet going into the
Hmm.
interview. Those things are readily available today. Where, when I was looking at first
Yeah, not
interview, like,
so
none of
much.
that was yeah. But
Yeah,
tell me about the 3 you had, though. So you had 3.
yes.
So, yeah, walk me through, like, how'd you get the
Yeah.
first, second, and third one?
Yep. So my freshman year, I went into college with a lot of enthusiasm, and I had this very big goal that I was going to have a freshman year internship. And I remember everyone telling me, "Well, who's your family connection? Who's going to help you get that internship?" Because no one gets a freshman year internship without family connections typically. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to all the events. I'm going to speak with all the recruiters. I am going to do everything that this university offers, which is one of the major benefits of having a large alumni base, a really great career center that the University of Alabama offered. So there were constant company events that I showed up to with recruiters. I showed up multiple times to multiple of different sets of these events, and I kept on seeing the same recruiters and reminding them of who I was, and I ended up getting a financial advising internship. It ended up being a little more salesy than I would have liked, and I decided to go a little bit of a different route, but it was through going to all of those career center events. It was through doing mock interviews with my career center, and it was by showing up and being prepared and saying, I understand that I'm a freshman. I understand that you don't typically hire freshmen, but here's my experience, here's my ambition, here's my drive, and I believe that I'm going to be a really great fit in spite of being a freshman. And they gave me an interview, used that interview prep that I did with the Career Center, and I ended up getting it. So that was the first internship.
All right.
Second internship was JP Morgan. I actually got a referral from an alumni. So that was really great. They came on campus. I asked some really great questions during a lunch and learn event. And then afterwards, I came up to one of the recruiters. I said, what can I've applied. I'm waiting to hear back. Is there anything that you can do to help me out? Gave me his card. I emailed him 30 minutes later, and then he gave me a referral and pushed me along to final round interview. And then I kind of used some of the tips that you were just talking about, Jamie. I researched my recruiter, found out that she led all the community service efforts for that division. So, of course, my end of interview question was, how does JP Morgan, how does the division give back to the community? And you should have seen this lady's like face light up. She was so happy to share about her biggest passion, and we connected on that level. So those were the first two. And then Mercer Advisors was my third internship, and I got a not an alumni referral, but he attended the University of Alabama his first year. So I found him through that and then had a coffee chat. I had already applied to the role. I shot him a cold outreach message on LinkedIn, and he gave me a referral and pushed me along the interview process. So those were kind of the three there and some strategies I used.
Yeah, well, I do think two of the three, right, ended up really being impacted, probably at least some
Yeah.
degree on referrals. And so I think that's a
Yes.
big one. I don't know the stat well enough, but somebody could Google it and find out. But right, a lot of jobs, I believe it's the majority of jobs are found via
80%.
network. Yeah, it's a lot of referrals. Internships, I think, especially so because there are so many applicants per spots a lot of times. So
Yeah.
when we're looking at ours, like we end up accepting, I think, less than 10% of
Mhm.
the applicants to Bryn Mawr Trust and WSFS that apply. So we have hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And while having a referral does not guarantee you one, it puts you in a
No,
much
it helps.
spot. Yeah. Even in the system, it can say, like, hey, do you have a person that would essentially
Hmm.
vouch for you? And you can put it in. And then we get an email and said, like,
Hmm.
hey, will you actually vouch for this person? Um, how do you know them? What's the positives you say about them? And I had a young FinServ fellow recently. He did apply, but he asked for time with me beforehand. You're right. I think he applied, but then same thing you did, right? Asked for that follow up before he interviewed to say, "Hey, Jamie, what can I do to set myself apart?" Got his first round interview recently, and then sent me the, "Hey, I
I
got my
know who
first
you're talking
interview."
about.
Yeah, yeah. So, but like, those were all the right things. And when you look at the world and how competitive it is for these, especially for him taking advantage, and it's this is probably understated to some degree, but like I run that part of the firm, right? Like I'm CEO of that business, and
Mhm.
like it's really important. Like when I say yes in the system that like I would endorse this person,
Yes.
I'm not saying they're going to get it because I don't override
Uh-huh.
anybody over there, right? Like I'm not the interviewer, and if they pick other people, they pick other people. But it carries a lot of weight, and
Mhm.
my team's going to see that, and probably it's like 90% sure then that you're going to move forward at least. But like you
Mhm.
can still flub your interviews, and not be the right fit.
Yeah,
But it
it
gets you to
helps.
a spot that's really hard to even get to. And I think
Yes.
that sometimes that's underappreciated. Yeah, I have the opposite side of that story not too long ago where we had somebody who had accepted a role here and then backed out. And it was super
Uh,
interesting. Because they went to a company where I think the offers were almost identical. There was some stuff they liked better about the other one than here, and I never did have the conversation because at that point it seemed, I just wasn't going to. But like I knew the person well. And I was like, to leave a company where the CEO knows you to go to a company where like the CEO doesn't know your name is actually a
yeah.
really bad decision. Like, because you want that advocate from a
Yes.
referral from somebody who graduated your university, somebody who graduated FinServ, because eventually to move up, you typically need advocates. And so that helps a lot. So it's a great story about all of those. So let's go to what are some of the things you did to set your resume and you
Mhm.
apart too, right? Like joining FinServ was one, but you have done
Yeah.
a bunch of other things, including other organizations you've gotten yourself involved in.
Yeah. So I would say utilizing all of my career center resources was huge. I did tons of resume reviews my freshman year. And I remember in high school when I created my resume to apply to college, I probably made one 10 times or made edits to it
Hmm.
several times. And I went into college and my first advising appointment, and I was like, here's my resume. I'm so excited. And oh, I got completely torn to shreds. It was awful. But I think through that, it made me, gain a little bit of a deeper sense of appreciation of how important a resume is, because the studies do show that a recruiter will look at your resume for about 6 seconds before they determine if they either A, want to continue reading or pull you in for an interview, or it's
Yeah.
going to go in the trash. So utilizing the career center was huge, having someone look over my resume, but more of, what's on my resume,
I
joining
think you
the
use your career center more than anybody uses
I
it.
know, but I love it and I work in it.
Well, you told me one time that I think your career center, I don't know if this is true for all of them, but I think yours has clothing that they have a
Yeah.
wardrobe. Yeah.
Yes. So specifically for my freshman and sophomore year, we have a Crimson Closet, and I heavily used that for all of my wardrobe needs. So we have a Crimson Closet. We even have a headshot booth. So if
Mm.
you need a headshot for your LinkedIn or for any other thing, Career Center has that. So, and I think having a career closet is something that's becoming a little more popular. So you like figure out, for all the fellows, for all the students who are listening, figure out what resources your university career center has to offer and utilize them to the fullest extent. So that was one of the biggest ways was I really utilized all the resume resources, like all the resources overall. And then I got really involved in the financial planning club on campus. So my sophomore year, I found out about it. By the middle of my sophomore year, I was running to be president and I got it. Grew the membership from 15 members to over 160 dues paid members. And I started a book club. I like I started panels. I was like running panels. I created like curriculum through it. I was running the mentorship program. So that those were all things that I wanted to create opportunities for the students and I wanted to create opportunities for myself to look good on my resume. And I utilized that leadership position to do that and really set myself up for success.
Yeah, it's a great point. I did a couple of those back when I was in college too. And for actually that main reason, what I realized was I didn't have all the things I wanted from a resume perspective. So getting involved with the clubs and then taking positions inside the clubs, right? I
Uh-huh.
took over a treasury one, and actually I took over a legal one in a different
Oh,
area of the university. And but those to me were just like small differentiations on resumes that look very similar. Uh, and for some people, like I was an athlete and I was on scholarship. So some of the stuff before, like I'd probably say my freshman and sophomore year, I really wasn't even thinking about internships because I was going to be training most of the summer. And this is also paying for school and I do work outside of it, but like traditional work hours are challenging. So a lot of, people that play, full-time sports have to think other ways to do things. And
yeah.
I tell people a lot, like freshman, sophomore year, totally fine. Like make money, enjoy yourself, do the things you want to do. To your point earlier, that junior year one is super important
Pretty
to try to
important.
find something. I've even gone so far to tell people if you have to take an unpaid one that summer because you can't find a paid one and you can afford it, which is a different
Hmm.
thing. It's not for
Yeah.
everyone. But like if you can, like that's better off than taking a paid right service job your junior year again, because what you'll see from a long-term earnings perspective, if you can afford it, that's going to be better. But if you can't find any of them, the other thing you can then look at is you might be able to find an internship more locally unpaid during the school year. And I've recommended
Hmm.
that to a lot of actually FinServ fellows. They couldn't find something during the summer, but everybody disappears during the school year.
Yeah.
They're like, actually, I emailed a couple of places and they said they'd love to have us for a couple hours.
Oh,
And that gets it on the resume, right? It's not a full, 40-hour a week thing. Might be 4 hours a week, but funny enough, on the resume, they are now identical, right? Like,
yes, they
like,
are.
like you lost out on the whole summer ones, but you got the fall one at 4 hours a week to help
Uh-huh.
input stuff into their systems. But on the resume, you are now at the same spot, which I think is a really interesting way to approach that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can afford to do that, reach out, cold reach out. You can show up in person. Whoever it's at the front desk, ask who can I
Yeah.
speak with or what contact information can I get? I'd love to reach out.
We actually just hired somebody in one of our offices recently, a woman who walked in with her resume and handed it to them and said, "Hey, I'd love to work here." And
Really?
yeah, and we did not have an open role for her right then, but her resume was very impressive. She lived nearby, which is why she walked down to the office. She had just saw that we opened. I think she walked in because we did like an opening party and everything, and she saw that and some announcements that we opened this office, and she came in like 2 months after that, gave us her resume, and I think we hired her about 4 or 5 months after that when a role did
Wow.
open up. And so that's set like setting, differentiating yourself in a very competitive market.
Yeah.
Because
If
honestly, had she not walked it in and just submitted it online, I can't tell you that she would have been the one that would have, made it through, but she already showed up well when she walked in there.
you know what's funny, Jamie? I feel like I see all these memes online of people who are a little bit older than you, probably people my parents' age, and they say, "Well, you need to just walk in with your resume." I don't know if you've ever seen those those
I
memes.
don't see those memes. No, no.
I see them all over my feed, and it's the people my age who are saying, "My parents are just saying you need to show up with your resume in hand." It might work because if everyone's applying online, what are you doing that your peers aren't to stand out?
Yeah, it's a little bit off topic, but I can tie it back in. I already thought of it. So, one of the interesting things that happened in the marketing world is actually just in the last, I'll say, 3 years, mail marketing has come back into vogue because
Oh.
everybody moved to email marketing, and you get so many emails, you basically just delete them all the time. Now, the good thing with email marketing, the reason it hasn't gone away, it's super ineffective. Like it's terrible, garbage, it doesn't work. Um, but it's so cost effective, even though it's so bad and moves the needle so little, it is so cheap and easy to do, it
Uh-huh.
just won't go away.
Mhm.
Mail marketing into your like physical mail is actually very expensive, right? Like mass mail costs tens of thousands of dollars. It's super expensive. But because mail has dropped off so much, we've actually seen back out there that people are shifting back to it because you aren't getting as much mail. And therefore, like
Yeah.
it's catching people's eyes more. There's more response. So it's been interesting to see this shift away from digital back to in-person mail. And I think you're probably right. There was a brief period of time where I think people would be like, it's weird we don't take paper resumes, but now it almost like stands out for certain roles. Now, for certain companies, they aren't going to take it, and like
Yeah.
they'll be like, I can do nothing with this. Like that is handled by New York, and I am not
Don't
in
do
the
that to
office
Goldman.
mailing. Yeah, like it's yeah, you do that at Goldman, it's not getting there, right? Like it's going in the trash, and best of luck. Uh, but for smaller firms, it probably does help you stand out a bit. But the way to tie that back in is also sending handwritten notes. I know you've done it
Yes.
before, but mailing out notes to people is a huge thing. I get them every once in a while. Funny enough, I mentioned Denise earlier. She is really good at this. She sent me a handwritten note this week that showed up
Aw.
in the mail, and she's excellent at it. But she lives in the marketing world too. But she's thoughtful and thinks about those things. I am not good at that. I don't send people handwritten notes at all. But yeah, it is. It definitely stands out because I don't get very many of them anymore.
Mhm.
Right, I get a couple a year at most, and you remember, and they kind of sit around for a while. Like they'll sit on my desk for like months. So I was trying to see, like, is there one floating around here? Who sent me this one? So I've one sitting here. Yeah, I got one handwritten note
Oh, I
card
love it.
here. But yeah, they just kind of like hang around for a while, so I see them a bunch. It keeps you more top of mind. Email thank yous is gone within seconds.
Yeah, I agree. People keep handwritten notes. They delete emails. So if you follow up your interview with a thank you email, that's great. Then send a handwritten thank you note to the office, especially if it's a small RIA or a smaller company. You just address it to the person. You can even call the person at the front desk and be like, "Hey, I'd like to send a thank you note to my recruiter. What's a good address?" And they'll give you the exact address that you need to send it to. It's so easy, and no one else, like seriously, no one else is going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
like you might be the only one to do it. And it does matter. So we're on I'm gonna wrap up now here with you. Our time flew by. But this one, I'm going to pivot a little bit. I think we had a great conversation about that strong close. Having stepped into the executive director role here at FinServ, what's one really big vision or idea or thing you want to see come to life for FinServ over the next, say, 18 months?
Oh, that's exciting because I put time on your calendar to plan goals for 2026. So I'll get you bought into some of the ideas I have. But overall, I am building a resource drive right now for the fellows. I figured out the user logins. I'm working on a few things right now, but building up partnerships and securing scholarships for our fellows and additional resources is going to be a big goal that I'm looking forward to achieving in 2026.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Thank you, Victoria, for hopping on today. What's the best way for people to find or reach out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, absolutely. Feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn And then my executive director email is director@finsurffoundation.org.
Well, thank you for being part of the organization, help leading it, and thank you for the great conversation today. Hopefully, it was very useful for everybody listening to it, and look forward to seeing what comes together in 2026. And as you said, whatever our goal planning meeting is coming up on so then I find out what we're doing. But super exciting, and thank you again for being on here, and for everybody else. Stay safe and healthy. Keep doing all the great things you're doing out there in the world to make this world a better place. Thanks, everyone. Until next time, Jamie Hopkins.